in the world where we are constantly trying to define kids and the expectations from parents, the society and the schools all together, is it a burden today, or we are creating a better environment for them to grow into a better humans altogether? So today the discussion is all about kids development, their upbringing, their safety and the space that we are going to create for them for a better childhood. So today we have with us Shruti Parab again with us, and this time she is going to give us insight about what goes on inside a child's mind and how a kid and a parent relationship impacts the upbringing of the child, also the environment that comes along with it. So let's begin.
Hi Mansi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
So the immediate question that I have in mind is, when I see kids at beach, they are constantly creating forts. You know, we also used to do that. Even at our homes, we used to create like the fort, like with pillows, with dupatta from our mothers, and we used to pretend play basically. So what is going on there in the mind? Like, why do kids do that? Like, what is the psychology behind it?
I feel pretend play is there from generations. So we were also doing pretend plays. Kids even now do pretend plays. So I feel pretend play is where we understand or we connect to the environment. So when a child is in a pretend play, he is generally trying to mimic the characteristics that are present or the characters that are present in his life. So maybe a mother or a father or a grandmother or a grandfather or sometimes teachers. You know? So we used to, you see young girls, they will drape a sari like their mother, or they want to wear their father's shoes. Or I remember playing teacher when we were say in first standard or second standard.
With our siblings probably.
Correct. So the main idea behind that is how we relate to the environment. So pretend plays tell us how we are trying to understand the environment and how am I trying to mimic it so that I can relate to the environment, right? So children as such don't have their own concept of who they are in very younger, say 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. So the idea is generated by their correlation with the environment, of how the parents are with each other, how they talk to the child, how they talk to the neighbors, how they talk to each other, how they talk to each other family members. So they tend to mimic the same. Right? So if a parent is having a very bad relationship with one of the grandparents, for instance, they will also talk in the similar way with that person. So we're trying to copy our elders.
Right.
And that is how I eventually start having understanding about myself and how I fit in the environment.
Right.
So the psychology of the whole idea is to understand the environment. You see the cartoons that are that run, they're usually animals. It's because kids as young as 3 and 4 years cannot relate to humans.
Okay.
So there, if as a psychologist we do their assessments, the pictures will have animals in it. Is because they understand through animals better or objects better than humans. So that age is where kids are trying to copy and implement the same in. And if you go say lower than 3 years of age, you see kids learn through textures and they will pick up everything and they'll put it in their mouth. That is how they understand what is it. So they'll pick up an ant and they will put it in their mouth. They don't understand that this is not supposed to be put in your mouth. That is what we teach them. That is how they understand, oh, this is not supposed to be in your mouth. This
so
is
are
not
you
supposed
trying
to
say that the general concept of fear is not inbuilt?
Correct. So if a mother or a father is scared of a particular insect, high chances the child will also be scared of the same insect. Is not because of the insect, it's because of the reaction that comes when they see it. So if I'm a mother and I don't like cockroaches and I scream, they understand the scream. So that is how they mimic, okay, when I see a cockroach, that is how I'm supposed to react to it. That is how fear is instilled in us. So as young as 3, 4, we generally don't identify with what others are thinking about us. That is how parents get caught in very awkward situations, right? Because the
The kid
child
is very truthful, I guess, in
Correct.
situations like that.
Correct. It's because they don't understand, okay, this is not what we're supposed to say, or this is not appropriate.
Right.
They will just copy paste
Copy
it and they will throw it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is, I think, that is how make believe works in kids.
And what do you think is the age for kids where they are able to form ideas about themselves or about things around them?
I think as kids start growing, say from 5, 4, 6, they start having general ideas about what is good, what is not good, how we're supposed to behave in a particular environment. So the kid as young as 3.5 starts going to school, right? So the school has a particular decorum to be maintained. That is how discipline is instilled. You're supposed to ask the teacher to drink water. You're supposed to ask the teacher to go to washroom. That is how discipline is built in. Then the child goes to first standard when he's 6. Then he starts identifying himself better, or he has better ideas, as, or I would say better decision making skills that gets built up from age 6 and above, right? But if we talk about identity as to who am I, so who am I gets built when the kids generally start hitting puberty. So back in our age it was say 13ish, now it has come down to 10.
Okay.
So kids hit puberty at the age of 10, 11. That is how I understanding who am I is because I start relating to what people are doing. So that is when friends start becoming important. That is when peers start becoming important. That is when what this person is saying becomes important. What my teachers think about me becomes important. How much marks I score become important. How am I performing becomes important, is because I start relating to environment around me.
Right.
Right? So that is when identity of an individual starts building. It will start taking shape.
Like, this is exactly my next question that I was coming up to. Like, what is the environment like, and what is the role of a parent or siblings, probably, or relatives or society that we live in an upbringing of a child and the identity formation of a child?
I feel environment plays a very crucial and a very important role. The first relationship, if we go back, Mansi, so you say you and me as a child. So the first relationship that we have experienced is our relationship with our parents. That is the first ever relationship that we will always have, right? That there are no friends back then. There are no extended families back then, right? How I feel about my mother as a child, that grows on, right? Or the relationship that I have seen between my parents. So whether it was healthy, whether they had good communication, whether they had a lot of fights, you know, this starts reflecting in the child. So if the child is exposed to very violent environment, or whether frequent fights, whether frequent commotion, the child will by default start closing up. Is because he doesn't feel safe in his own environment with the primary caregivers or the primary relationships that he has. So when that starts disrupting, your whole idea about who the world is, how the world is, that starts impacting. So environment is a very important, environment has a very important role in how we process things as we become adults. So if I did not have a healthy childhood, I become a very chaotic adult, right? So everything that I understand about myself is also taken from the environment. So if I've had a very critical parenting, I will generally eventually end up becoming a very critical adult. either to the outside world or else it is inward. So then I start criticizing myself a lot. So everything that we learn or understand is our relationship with the primary members of the family. So it's very important to have very healthy communication, very healthy empathic relationships that people around the child has to have. Right, of course, because every reaction is going to get registered, right? Every reaction that goes out from my end is going to be registered in the kid's system, and that is how he will build his reactions. So they might not be exactly similar to my reactions or exactly same as my reactions, but they will mold according to his
Right.
personality, right? So if a child is very introvert, the child might close up. If the child is extrovert, he might start acting out.
Yeah.
He might start putting temper tantrums. He might become very irritable. So every person is different. Even identical twins will have different processing of the world. So how we process the world generally comes from the world that we have or we are born in. So the world we are born in is our family.